I remember the service and I remember Hoosick Falls. Today, would you please state your name and where you live?
My name is William J. O'Brien. I live 20 Richmond Avenue, Hoosick Falls, New York.
How long you lived in Hoosick Falls, Bill?
Since 60 years. Let's see, 39.
I see. And where'd you live before?
I was born and brought up in Pittstown, New York. That's where I spent my younger years.
I see.
And we were burned out.
But your father have a farm, I
My
think.
father was a farmer, and lightning struck one night, and we lost 7 barns. So that was back in the 30s, and that was discouraged my father from carrying on. So he came to Hoosick Falls and moved us up here. 1939.
You moved.
I was 16 years old at the time, and it was kind of rough to change schools. We were going to high school in Catholic High in Troy, so my younger brother Vince and I had to change. I was in junior year, and he was in sophomore year, and it was in October of that year we had to change over. But we made out, and we graduated. And
You went to, which school
St.
did you go?
Mary's
You went to
School.
St. Mary's Academy.
Yeah, we went to St.
Yeah.
Mary's. And after I graduated from high school, I didn't know, nothing was mentioned about college. My folks didn't have any money or anything. So went to work at Undergarment, stretching material for the cutters that summer. And 3 weeks was all I could take that because it was so hot up there, and I figured I was worth more than doing that. So I quit there on a Friday, went to work the following Monday morning at Kincaid and Sons Plumbers next door. And from there I was enjoying that job, but all of a sudden I got a ruptured appendix from lifting heavy radiators and things. So after that I had to get a light job, so that's when I went to work in Thorpe's Pharmacy. So I was there when...
When'd you get out of high school?
1941.
41, so this is between 41.
Yeah, and 43.
Yeah, I see.
1943 I went in the draft.
But you were working at Thorpe's.
At Thorpe's, and went in the draft in February 43, and at the time you had to have a physical locally, so Dr. Mader gave us a physical, and he said, you got a heart murmur. He says, I can throw you out. I said, no. I said, all my friends are going, and let me go as far as Albany anyway. If they throw me out down there. Okay, so we get to Albany and they check you out and say, oh, gee, you're okay. You're 1A. So away I went.
Well, what'd you do? Go down to enlist or were you drafted?
No, drafted. In the
see.
draft. I went in the draft. And
Were there other guys from town that went in that same draft as you
no,
did?
not with me. No,
I
I
see.
was alone. And well, in that branch of service, they might have gone with me, but
Yeah.
maybe it's other. So they pulled out a bunch. Let's see, we went to Camp Pickett, Virginia, for basic training, and they pulled out a bunch and decided that I worked in a drugstore, and so maybe they put me in the medical corps. That's the way the Army thought. So they pulled out a bunch of us and sent us to a surgical technician school in Atlanta, Georgia. And we graduated, and we had a diploma and everything. And after that, we came up, a bunch of us came up to Hampton Roads, Virginia, and we were at a Veterans Hospital in Kecoughtan, Virginia, which is at Hampton Roads. And we sat around there for a while, and then they said, well, you guys want to take some furloughs, but we can go home before anything else happens. This was in 1944. So I came home and in May of that year, and I married Norma Andrew, and on a 10-day furlough. That's the way you did things during the war period. So I went back to Newport News, or Hampton Roads, Kecoughtan Veteran Hospital, and sent for her to come on down. We were married, and I'd been there quite a while. I thought I'd stay there. She got there on a Friday night. Following Monday, we got our transfer to Texas, Abilene, Texas, to Fort, Camp Barkley, Abilene, Texas. So I was down in Texas for, well, almost a year. So Norma came down then, and then they told us to pack up our women and send them home, and we're going overseas. So she came home, and I went into Camp Miles Standish. I guess that's on Cape Cod, and they call it Camp Miles Standish, and that was a shipping off debarkation point for overseas. So I went overseas on the USS America. It was a luxury liner, had been converted to a troop ship, and we went over in December of '44 unescorted, and German U-boats were prevalent all over. So we didn't know if we'd get there or not, but we did. And we pulled into Marseilles, France, through the Mediterranean Sea, and we couldn't get anywhere near port because the Germans had scuttled all the ships. So we had to go over the side of our boat on a rope ladder and down into a little flat French barge and go into the seashore, into the shore. So then it was nighttime then, and it was raining pitchforks, and they loaded us on trucks, and they said, we're going to take you to your bivouac area. So they took us out in the hills somewhere, and each man had a half of a shelter, pup tent. So my buddy and I got our pup tent together, and it was on a rocky ledge, and every time you drive a peg in or break off. So anyway, we crawled under went to sleep. The next week or so, they moved us up to Metz, France, and we were to start a hospital, and I was a surgical technician to assist the surgeons, whether it was frontline or in a hospital or not. We never got to find out because the war was over in June of that year, or May, whenever it was. So we never set up. And the Battle of the Bulge came at that period, and no matter who you were, they were pulling you out, sending them in the front lines. But we got past that period too. We didn't get called up. So we left France, we came down to Marseilles again and stayed in the staging area after the war was over, and then they loaded us on the boat, and we were going to the Pacific Theater by way of the Panama Canal. Japanese war was still on. As we pulled out of the Mediterranean a couple days after getting on the boat, all of a sudden at night we heard a hullabaloo on the boat. We didn't know what was going on. It was in August of '45. And then the word got passed around that the Japanese had surrendered. So, oh boy, those guys are happy.
Good news.
Too, on the boat. Good news. So we pulled into Newport News. The next day we got change of orders from the Panama Canal to Newport News, Virginia. So we pulled in there, and they had a big band on the wharf, and the song popular at that time was Sentimental Journey, and that band struck up. Makes tears come to my eyes now. With Sentimental Journey, and there wasn't a dry eye in any of the guys that got off that boat. If that was a Sentimental Journey, boy, that was it. Here we were going thousands of miles away from the States, going right past the States, really, to the Japanese, to the Philippines. So I called home. After we got situated, maybe the next day or so, we got lodging, and so I called home, and so my wife Norma, and there was no answer. She was out, so I called. I gave a ring to my father, who lived here and was across too, and he answered, and I told him. I said, "We're in the States." And I said, "Will you try to call Norma and see if you can get a hold of her, because I can't get a hold of her. She's not home." She wouldn't believe it. She says, come on, Dad, you're kidding. Oh, no, he's just called. He's in Newport News, Virginia. So then we got leave. We came home and for, I don't know how long. And I went back, and then we got, I got a dispensation for Christmas that year because my brother, Father Victor, was being ordained in Albany at the cathedral. So I came home for that. It was just before Christmas and stayed for Christmas. And then went back and went on and, let's see, that was in 45. So we had to spend some time in Alabama, one camp there. And then they sent me to Fort McPhearson, Georgia. And that's where I was discharged, from Fort McPhearson, Georgia. That was Fort McPhearson. So I came home and became a civilian.
Well, and is there any other interesting things that happened during the service? Did you meet guys from Hoosick Falls at all while you were overseas at all?
Never met anybody from, no, never met anybody I knew over there. Just made friends on the way, you know, being with the guys.
Sure.
At the time I was in the service, my two brothers were in. Jimmy was my older brother, and Vince my younger brother, and they were both in the Air Corps. I was in the Army and the medic. And then my brother, the priest, Father Victor, he became a chaplain for the National Guard. So the whole four of us was actually in the service at one time. So.
In other words, your brother Vince became a priest during the war.
Father Victor, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, in 1945 he was ordained down in London.
And your other brothers served in the Air Force?
Yep, my youngest brother Vince and my oldest brother Jimmy were both. And they had tough duty. They had basic training down in Miami on the beaches. Boy, that made me great. I was crawling around up in the red clay of Camp Pickett, Virginia.
All right, so you came home.
Yep.
And then what happened?
Came home and I was married to Norma, and let's see, that was 46. Oh, in September of 46, our first child was born, Edward. And in 1947, we bought the little house on Walton Street, and we became owners of property for a change. And I had at that time, I had to have $500 down payment to get the loan. I didn't have $500. I come up with $250, and I borrowed the other $250. Oh, I went back in the Thorpe's drugstore after I got out of the service. So I borrowed the other $250 from Mr. Thorpe, and he'd take some out each week. So I stayed in the Thorpe's there for a couple of more years. And a lot of us guys, after we come out of the service, we took the civil service exam for post office. And it was held in the old high school down by the park. And there was quite a few took it, maybe 14, 15. So I come out pretty good. I was second on the list. I had 94.2. And I still waited around 3 or 4 years before they called me. And I finally got in 1952. And I spent 34 years as a street letter carrier. And I enjoyed it, being out, meeting people. And had a lot of good benefits because I never had a college education. So, 1986, I retired from there after 34 years service. And my wife Nora retired at the same time. She went to work after the kids had, well, there was 4 children came along. And, so after the first 2, then we outgrew our little home on Walton Street. So we started looking around for something bigger. So we decided to build on the Richmond Avenue, right across from the golf course. And we had 2 more children, after we moved there, so we had 2 boys and 2 girls, which was a good-sized family, and we just enjoyed life and everything about it, and our family. And
Could you tell us a little about working in Thorpe's, what it was like?
well, in Thorpe's, I was clerk more or less, stocking shelves, but each one had their own cash drawer. You had to be responsible for, they'd put you to selling stuff to people when they got busy, and you were responsible for your own cash drawer.
Did they have a soda fountain in there?
Yeah, and I was a soda jerk, and there was a busy place at that time, that little soda fountain. And had all kinds of people come and go there that I worked with, but I enjoyed them.
What are some of the memories you have of Hoosick Falls and businesses and things that you remember, you know, when you were young?
I was 16 when we moved here, and I didn't know much about history of my family or anything. So I started looking around, inquiring, reading and everything. And my mother was born and brought up on Clay Hill. Her father and mother were born in Ireland, and they came over during the famine there in Ireland. And he worked for Walter A. Wood. That would be my mother's father, would be my grandfather on her side. So, and my mother was one of 8 children. And 5 of them died in the period they were here as young people. Between the ages of 5 and 18, she lost 5 brothers and sisters from the consumption or whatever, the thing that happened during those years. So I've never been able to trace much on my mother's side.
What did your father do when he left, when the farm burnt down and he came into Hoosick Falls?
After the farm burned, he still had farming in his blood. So he went off, hired out to other farmers, and come home weekends. And when he told my mother he was going to move the family to Hoosick Falls, she said, that was in '39 now. She said, Will, she says, don't move the family to Hoosick Falls. She says, there's no future there for the children. So, I guess it hadn't got much bigger since, but I was the only one that stayed around. My brothers and sisters took off and they live in other places. But I've always enjoyed being here, living here.
Well, Bill, is there anything you'd like to mention about Hoosick Falls or anything before we call it quits?
No, I guess not.
Because we're neighbors. I've known you for quite a while. And
yeah, how many years
your kids did well. I know, you got Ed's a doctor, and
yeah, Paul, our second, he's a salesman. And he's close by, only an hour away.
Well, we thank you very much for being here, and we'll say thanks again.